Sorry. Once again, I want to welcome you all to our Wednesday webinar. This webinar is part classifications and reuse with Windchill 11. Once again, my name is Michael Wimberly, and I will be conducting the webinar. So once again, the overall objectives of this webinar is to go on and review and demonstrate part classification and reuse inside of Windchill 11. So the overall agenda is simply an introduction of myself and boundary systems, a topic overview, product demonstration, and then after that, Q&A. As far as the Q&A portion of it, if you have any questions in your GoToMeeting on the on the left side of your screen, there is an area in there for questions. Questions, we'll basically table those until the end, and then once we have those, we'll answer the questions as they come in. All right, so a little bit about myself. Once again, my name is Michael Wimberly. I work for Boundary Systems. I am a senior technical specialist. I've been working with PTC products now for over 20 years, coming up on 25 years. I'm certified trainer in Creo and Windchill classes, as well as a certified implementation specialist for Windchill as well. Boundary Systems. Boundary Systems, first off, is headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio, actually Middleburg Heights, which is just outside of the airport, so we're very easy to get to. We're basically right off of 71 as well, if you're familiar with the area. I personally actually live in Cincinnati, which is, of course, the lower part of Ohio, so I do work remotely for Boundary Systems as well as some of the other technical specialists as well. Boundary Systems is a technology leader. Some of our partners that make us a technology leader, of course, are PTC. We also work with Solid Thinking, eTraj, ZWCAD, as well as in some other companies that I'll list on one of the next slides coming up. We've also been the 16th fastest growing private company in the greater Cleveland area. And some of our general capabilities that allow us to be a technology leader is product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, as well as product development. What you see on the right side of the screen is just some of the companies, that we've worked with either currently or in the past. And of course, this isn't an entire list of all the companies that we work with. But if you're not currently one of our customers, we'd love to add you to this slide. And we'll have our contact information at the end of this. So once again, some of our industry awards that we've been on the Inc. 5000 over the last probably 6 years or so. We've also been in the Weatherhead 100, which is Northeast Ohio's fastest growing companies. We've also been in that for over the last 6 years or so. And some of our major accreditations include Windchill Certified Implementer, PTC Preferred Service Provider, and of course a certified training partner with PTC. And here once again are some of the companies that we do work with. So once again, PTC and some of the areas that we work with with PTC, Solid Thinking, eTraj, Moldex 3D, also Mentor Graphics for their Flow EFD, and then ZWCAD for their 2D equivalent of AutoCAD. So we work with them as well, or partner with some of their different company. All right, so if there are any questions that come up, you can definitely reach us. My name is Michael Wimberly. Here's my contact information, being my phone number, 513-415-0747, and then, of course, my email address being mwimberly@boundarysys.com. If you have any sales-related questions, you can contact Carrie Dillon. She's at 440-409-5898 or cdillon@boundarysys.com. All right, so just once again, a brief questions. So, a couple of questions. So, how important is it to be able to find things when you need them? Also, how frustrating is it when you can't find it? I know I see you all shaking your head and everything. I've been there before. How many of us just sometimes go out and buy a new one when the search just simply becomes too much? We just basically give up and we just simply buy another one because it's easier. And then with that, how much money do we waste doing that? So at some point in time, we're going to find that item that we're missing. So for me, I've actually, unfortunately, have lost tape measures before. So I probably have 4 different tape measures now because I've put one in one location and didn't realize where I had it. I also have probably 2 or 3 different hammers because same thing. I put it in a location probably with the tape measure that I couldn't find. And it was much easier because, you know, the Lowe's and Home Depot are not far from me, so it was much easier for me to go in and just buy another one than sit here and waste time trying to search for it. But what if there is a method to help find things quick and easily and save money? Would you be interested? I know it sounds like I'm going to sell you something, but I am. And of course, here's my buddy, Captain Obvious. Hi, I'm Captain Obvious. I'm here to state something really obvious. Yes, the answer to that question is, would you be interested in something to go in and help you save money? Of course you would. So let's go in and look at it. So what we're going to now look at is, of course, our Windchill. Pardon me. All right, so here we have Windchill. And for this, here's a scenario that we're going to go through. We're now going to go in and do an inventory. So we've gone through and we've said, okay, we need to go in and find out how many different pieces of hardware we have, different and same pieces of hardware that we have in our models or in our system. So I'm going to come over here in my search. And inside of here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to search for M5. So I'm just going to simply type in M5 and leave everything else the same. Just very simple search. Go in and find M5s. Now, when we do that, when we look on the screen in the results area, we can see that there are multiple M5s. What we can also see is that they're actually named all kinds of different things. How many of us in our company have screws, washers, bolts, nuts, whatever it is, that are basically the same but just simply named different? So if we look here, we don't have a large inventory of screws, but here we have an M5 by 28. Well, guess what? Here's an M5 by 28, and guess what? Here's another M5 by 28. This one is named SHCS M5-8 by 28. This one is SCR, basically for a screw socket. Where is it? That one. Underscore M5 underscore by 8 by 28. And then this one is called screw socket. So depending on who did it will determine how it's actually named. That's not always a good thing, because once again, we kind of lose our reusability. Because if you also notice is that these here for the screw socket, or the SCR.SKT, those are in our standard parts. These other ones are actually located in individual products. So guess what may have happened? Well, they may have gone through and said, okay, I need an M8 by 18. Okay, I'm going to go in and do a search, and I'm going to search for SHCS, because that's what I would name a socket head cap screw, or that's what I named it in my previous company. Well, guess what? That's not our standard naming convention here at this company. It's the SCR_SKT. Well, because I don't find it, guess what I do? I go in and I create it. So now I've created all the hardware that I needed within that particular product. Well, guess what? Somebody else did the exact same thing down here. They couldn't find the screw that they needed because my mindset is I'm going to go in and look up socket. Well, I look up socket. Socket's not in these. Socket's not here. So my result is I can't find a socket head cap screw. So I'm going to go in and create them. And I'm going to name mine screw_socket. And this could go on and on and on and on to go in and find that particular hardware. Well, once again, if we look here and we're looking and we're ordering, well, the first thing that we're going to do is when we go in the project 900 drill 900 series, guess what? We're going to order it based on the items inside of there. There may be a few, maybe 50 or 60 different screws that we can go in and order. Well, guess what? When we go down to the drill 1100, they pretty much use the same screws that are in the drill 900. But because the part numbers are different, I'm going to order my 50 or 60 separately from the 50 or 60 that the drill 900 is going in and ordering. So guess what? Yeah, we're talking hardware, but it's still a cost change, because now if I order 50 of them, it's at this price. But if I ordered 100 to 150 of them, then my price reduces. So the overall price of everything is reduced. And these are just these products that I'm actually accessing at this point in time. That doesn't mean that there aren't other products that may have other hardware that may be the same, or even using the hardware from our standard library. But once again, so by doing this, what we're doing is consolidating, or we're allowing ourselves to consolidate. Instead of going in and ordering it based on this, I can order it based on all these different machines using the same hardware. So like I said, we're talking screws here, but we may be talking, motors. So there's a little servo motor that we're ordering inside of here. Well, once again, inside of this 900 series, I'm ordering 2 or 3 of them. If I go in and add them to all the drills that it may be used, I may end up ordering 20 to 30 of them. Once again, a nice cost break because we're ordering larger quantities. So the benefit of this, once again, is to simply go in and reuse the data that we already have, as well as reduce the cost. Those are 2 important items. And if you want to add another one in there, because we ordered them when we went in and ordered to the 900 series, when we got to it and got to those same screws in the 1100 series, they were already ordered. So once again, lead time is now reduced because now we have the hardware or the pieces of, or the motor or whatever it is that we need already in stock, so we don't have to wait, once again, that lead time to go in and have those items delivered. So the question is, how do I go through and use that information? Well, one way is to go in and use what is called classifications. So what we're able to do, and classifications is actually used inside of PartsLink. So PartsLink is an application that you will need to have inside of Windchill to go in and use this functionality. So once again, what we can do here, and this is kind of what you see on the left side when you have it available. Just simple things here is to be able to go through and reduce the size. So what we're looking at here is the hardware. So if we only want to see the hardware from our standard parts, then we can go in and select standard parts, and it now reduces our list, and we only see the hardware from there. So we can go through and filter what we're looking at and then go into the individual files from here. Once again, this is still a higher level, and we're still looking at all the individual items within that product or library. We can also come over, once again, using classifications. Now, normally in older versions of the software, in order to get to classifications, you would have to go to the search tool here, and then down at the bottom, you have Classification Explorer. In the updated versions of Windchill, being 11, when you go into search, classifications is now inside of your basic search. So you don't, or I should say in the search tab. So you don't have to go up to the top level to go through and search. What I do is simply go into classifications, and what I have set up are different ways that I've gone in and classified my items. So right now I have it broken down into mechanical classifications, and I also have electronic classifications. So either one of those I can go through and use. So there's electronic parts, and I can go through and expand, and depending on what I've gone through and set up in my classifications, I can go through and now use those to filter down. So I'm going to go back to my mechanical classifications, and inside of here you can see once again on the left side it breaks it down, and also on the right side it breaks it down as well. So we're looking at now, I'm going to go ahead and reduce to the same level there. As you can see, I now have fasteners and I have wire, and under fasteners I can see that there's 122 different types of fasteners. If I expand that, I can then see I have bolts, I have screws, and I have washers. I can do the same thing here. Under fasteners, I can see screws, bolts, and washers. So I can then go in and break those down individually as well. So I can see that in screws, it doesn't break down any further, but in washers, it does break down a little bit further into washers, where I can now go through and specify whether or not I'm using a round washer or a shaped washer, maybe some type of a square washer or oblong, whatever it may be for that particular washer. So I can go through and break those down into lower categories as well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select on the round washer. So when I go in and select on the round washer, it now goes through and it brings this up now into my search results. Now what I'm looking at are just the round washers inside of my specific results area. Now once again, I can see that I still have 97 different washers available. But using that classification, using the PartsLink functionality, over here on the left side, I now have the items that I've specified underneath that washer item. So what I can go through and do is specify thickness. There I can go in and specify the range. I can go through and specify the inside diameter. So once again, the range of that as well. The thickness, the outside diameter, I can go through and specify. Any of those things I can go in and use. So let's go ahead and I'm going to change my inside diameter. And I'm going to go ahead and say a minimum value of 5 and then a maximum value of 10. I'm going to go ahead and apply that and see if I come up with anything. All right, and there we have some. So we can see that we have the washers inside of here that meet those criteria. This 0.5 and 0.315, those are actually an inch. So once again, when you convert those actually do still meet inside of the range that we've gone through and specified here. All right, so once again, I can narrow it down. I can also go through and specify outside diameter if I want to. So any of these things I can go through and use, excuse me, including application industry, including whether or not it's obtained its safety standard. So basically, if these items have gone through and have been approved by the safety standards, and you can see that narrows it down quite a bit to now just simply a single washer that meets that criteria. So I can go in and continue to update this and filter down the information that I want. Now, once again, this is beneficial because now it's a way of doing the search, but now I'm really going through and finding specifically what I'm looking for. If you notice, the one thing that I haven't looked at is I'm not looking at a part number. I'm not necessarily looking at a name. What I'm looking at, and I'll go ahead and open up one of these so we can see, and what I'm actually looking at are actually the classification attributes that I've gone through and specified inside of this model. So it doesn't matter what the number is. It doesn't matter where it's located. All I'm simply going in and specifying is I want to see the items that actually meet this criteria. I want it to be within this diameter range, inside diameter range, and I want it to have this type of material if it's material is important. So any of those characteristics that I've gone through and set up, I can now go through and use once again as my searching criteria. Once again, regardless of how things are actually set up. Now, how do we get to that? Well, there's multiple ways to go in and get to it. When I'm going into, excuse me, my actual file, I can come over and just create a new file. Now, once again, what I'm dealing with here are WT parts, but of course, when I go in and create WT parts, I can also go through and associate CAD files to those as well. So I can go through and categorize some of those. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you right up front. When we go in and create our part file, one of the options that we have down here at the bottom is a classification. So I can come over here and specify where that fits within my classification. So as I'm going through and set these up inside of, once again, my classification area, I can go through and specify any of those attributes as well as any of the sub items inside of it. Now, how do we do any of that? Well, I can go through inside of here. If you have your classification administration, you also have the ability to go through and manage your classifications. So what this does, it allows you to go through and create classifications. So right now I'm going to create a part. Underneath part, I have the ability to go to mechanical parts or electrical parts and then continue to expand from there. Now, what we use inside of here for each one of these are the simple attributes that we define in our type and attribute manager. So I'm just simply going in and using those same attributes that are defined in our normal system to go in and use them as categories for my actual classification item. So it's not something special that I have to go through and set up, or I should say create. I do want to create the attributes that I want to go in to control it, but I'm doing it once again in the same area that I have done any of my other attributes that I've set up inside of the models. So I'll go through and set any of that up. And then once again, as I'm going in and defining my models, I can then go through and define if it's going to be a classified model. So not everything has to be classified. So when we go through and design our models themselves, our CAD models, and it creates a WT parts, we don't have to classify any of those. Or if we are going and creating hardware or a motor, if it is specific to that particular product, then I don't need to go through and classify it, because it is for that. It's a special screw that was used, that will only be used on this particular model. I don't need to go through and classify that, because that will once again be product specific and not a general item that we will go through and define. So what we did find inside of here is once again some of our different items. But if you remember, when we went in and did our initial search, I'm just going to come back to the search that we created. If I go back to my initial search, we have multiple items. Well, the question now becomes, okay, if I do go in and I use my part classification inside of my models, then how do I go through and get rid of this stuff? How do I go through and basically now go through and not use this? Well, of course, there's always multiple methods of going in and doing that. So what I'm going to do for these, and I'm just going to start with these items here, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to take those. I didn't try it before. Yep, there it is. And I'm going to take those and I'm going to now move those from being inside of the Engine 900 series. I'm going to go ahead and now move those to my standard parts. So now those will now be in standard parts, just like the rest of the hardware will be, or is, I should say. So we can go ahead and move those things over there. Give it a second to move everything around. And currently it did not update, but if we simply go back and basically we execute the search, same thing. Excuse me. It'll now go through and show it, and we can see that those items are in standard parts. Now, once again, the items that we want to use are these here. We don't want to use these. So of course, one of the methods that people use is to simply go through and rename them, and rename them old, rename them with do not use on the end of them. However you want to go through and categorize that, you can go through and do that. You can also go through and promote them to an obsolete level, which you may or may not want to do that, only because a lot of individuals don't have access to obsolete objects, which means when they go through and pull up an assembly that uses those, they won't be able to actually pull that assembly up because it can't access those specific files. But one of the things that we can do is to make sure that we basically don't order those anymore. So one of the options that we have is, I'll go directly into this part here, is to go through and specify that for this file, for the related objects, I want to go through and define an alternate to it. So basically, when I go through and I'm using this, I'm using this, and then all of a sudden I'm out of them, well, now what do I put in its place? Well, what I can do is now go in and add an alternate to this particular item. Now, what I am doing is I'm bringing multiple different objects from inside of Windchill into the actual the database. So once again, inside of here, it's going to be a library, and the library that I'm going to use is going to be my standard parts library. All right. And then from inside of here, in standard parts, sorry, with the name, I'm going to go in and once again use my M5 and execute the search. So there's the M5, and then once again, this is the M5 by 50. So what I'm going to do is specify now as an alternate to this one, I'm now going to go through and use this. So now I have an alternate that now, once again, when this one runs out, go ahead and use the other one. Now with that alternate, and I think we've done a webinar on this a little bit, or included in one of the webinars. But with an alternate, we're basically saying that anywhere that this socketed cap screw is used, I can now go in and use this other one. Now I have the option of going in and specifying that this is a two-way street, which means if I run out of the other one, I can also now use this one. So if this one happens to run out, I can go in and actually use this one. But my goal is not to go two ways. I don't want to order this one anymore. I want to go through and just use this. So I'm going to have that be a one-way alternate so that once again, when this runs out, go ahead and use this one. So I can go in and use that to once again now relate the two to each other. Now, one of the other things that's beneficial, and I'm going to go directly into this one. Sorry. M5. So one of the things that's beneficial by using these, which once again, if I go into it, what I'll see is that this item is once again set up for the actual classifications. One of the benefits of this is, let's just say, okay, I run out of this one and I'm not using the other one. One of the benefits of using the classification is that I have an option of going and find similar parts. So it now brings up my dialog box here, which now has all of the attributes that I've gone in and defined inside of that particular part. So I can use any of these to now go through and substitute or to search for. So I'm going to go ahead and use a length. And what I'm able to do is go in and specify an absolute length. So basically anything within, let's say, plus or minus 10 millimeters. Or I can go in and do a percentage and say anything within 25% of this length, go ahead and use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use percentage, and I'm going to go in and type in 25. Now I'm not sure if we're going to find anything, but we'll see together. And with that, it actually finds 3 of them. There's an M5 by 60. There's an M5 by 50. Once again, the older one that we're not using anymore, but that actually has classification in it. And then of course the existing one that we have. So we have those that we can go through and use at any point in time. And once again, be able to substitute. So maybe that one is a little bit too long. Okay, well, maybe we can't use that one. So let's increase that to, I don't know, 40%. Let's see what else we find. Nope. Still, everything is still long. So if I can now come over here and change that to absolute and say anything within 25 plus or minus of this one, see if I find anything extra. There's a few more. So there, once again, there's one that's 28. So once again, depending on how it's actually set up or where it's used, we can go through and specify whether or not that can be used. So this is once again the benefit of using classification, is because anything else that has classification set inside of them, we can also go through and use. Now I'm using it for the hardware. I can also go through and do my classification explorer, come through here. Now I also have one other thing real quickly while I'm in here. I can also come down here, and while I'm doing my regular search, instead of going to the classification explorer, I can also come over here and I'm going to type in washer, And then I can come down here and specify that I only want the items that are categorized, inside of washers. So I don't want to find anything else that is not in the classification of a washer. So basically, don't show me any of the other washers inside the database that aren't in a classification. And then I can go through and search, and it'll go through and find those washers that once again have been set up with the classifications inside of those. Once again, regardless of part number, I don't care about part numbers. I can go in and use any of those. And the same thing as I said before with my search results, I can go through and filter it down. So once I'll go through and use, let's use this washer. Once again, don't care about a part number, but the same thing here is because I have it set with classification, I can go through and do my similar here as well and come over here and specify with the diameter, the inside diameter, that once again being millimeters. I want to be plus or minus a percentage of 15. Let's do 25. 25% of that value. Search. Oh, I didn't select it. Sorry. Select it that I'm going to use that one. And then it goes through and it finds the results from there. So anything that once again meets that search criteria, it will then go through and find. So once again, all I'm looking at is the diameter. I'm not looking at the actual outside diameter, just the inside diameter is what I've gone and specified. So once again, it makes it a lot quicker and a lot easier to be able to go in and find replacements. But once again, this only works for items that have classifications associated with them. What I'm going to do now is if I go into my standard parts, and I'm going to go through and find a piece of hardware that does not have classification. Let's come over here. I think this one does not. And I probably picked one of the ones that does. Good. This one does not. So once again, if I come over here, if you can notice, that option is not available because there's nothing for me to go through and specify what values I want to go through and search by, or basically find the familiarity with. Now, the good thing is that from here, if I do decide that I want to go through and make this part a classified part or have classification in this part, I can go in and simply edit this. So I have an existing part, and at this point, I can come over and specify the classification that I want it to be associated with. This will be associated with the screws. Go ahead and say OK. When I do that, now I have the next button, which will now allow me to go through and specify information. So I can go through and specify once again what industry this may be associated with, aerospace. If once again it's obtained the safety standard. If I have a weight for it, I can go through and specify a general description. I use just simply socket, head, cap, screw. Supplier that I may go in and purchase this from. The screw type, I'm using socket. The thread size, this is an M5 by 8. The actual length of it is 18, and then the actual diameter is 5. And there we have it. Check that file back in. And now we're looking at version 8.2. It now has classification, and it now has the ability to go through and use it. So I can go in and now, once again, find similar parts. And I'm going to go ahead and use the body diameter. And then with this one, I'm going to go through and say within a percentage of 10%. Search. And it'll find all of the M5s. Now, the other thing that I can do is I also have the length. And I can go in and specify the length an absolute value of 5. So plus or minus 5 from where I am. And once again, make sure I select it so it does search by both. And by doing that, I can now see that it's now filtered it down to show just the 2 items that are the exact same size and the one that is actually at 15. So once again, within that range. So this, once again, the whole purpose of this is to be able to go in and use existing files. So instead of having to go through and create one, see if it's already there. The benefit, or I should say that the caveat of that, is that these items have to be set up using classifications. If they're not set up using classifications, then you won't actually be able to go in and use this functionality. So some of this will be, retro, where you have to go through and set some of this up inside of your models after you go through and set the classifications up. But once again, you can do it on an as-needed basis. Or if you have, some people have interns or co-ops that, you can have them just simply go in and add this information. Apologize to any co-ops or interns that may be on the call because I may have just given you more work to do. But once again, just gives you the ability to go through and set this up and to easily be able to find stuff. Once again, one of the questions was, how easily do you want to be able to find something? If I have a solution for you to go in and find it, would you be interested? Here's the solution. The solution is going in and using part classification. Part classification, once again, is a simple way that allows you to go through and use your existing data. Once again, either by simply using the classification explorer, by going in and using the search and using classification inside of it. You can go through and specify any of that. As well as if you have a file that's classified or has classification in it, then I can go through and search for similar items. That is a very, very important piece of it, because I may have something that is, an M5 by 18, but I can legitimately use an M15 or a length of 15 or a length of 20. So instead of having to go through and order an 18 specifically, I have two parts already there that are already in stock that I can go through and use. I just simply go through and now use those in that assembly, use them as an alternate. Or one of the other things that we talked about or that I mentioned in the related items, I can also go through and instead of going in and using an alternate, I can also go through and specify a substitute. Now, substitutes are assembly specific. So I'm not saying with a substitute, I can use an M15 everywhere there's an M18. I'm not saying I can use, a length of 15 everywhere there's a length of 18, or a length of 20 everywhere there's a length of 18. What I'm saying is in this specific assembly, I can use either one of those as substitutes. An alternate, we're looking at across the board, no matter where it's used. A substitute, we're saying in a specific assembly or specific assemblies. Not everywhere can I now go through and create substitutes. So that's where those things also come into play, which once again uses more of the functionality inside of Windchill that will allow you to go through and reuse your data instead of having to go through and once again reordering things, costing you more money, your lead time being expanded, all those things that may cause you, once again, for your product, for your project to either run longer or run a little bit more expensive than it needed to be. Every dime counts, because hey, for some people, project coming in early and under budget means there's potential a bonus for you. So there's a functionality that will go in and assist with you. So your Christmas bonus may have a couple extra dollars in it because you are able to go through and save a few dollars in your assembly as well as time. So at this point, I will go in and ask for any questions. There is a question. The question is, would it be possible to get a recording of this webinar? This webinar will be posted on our website. Now that you mention it, I'll just pull it over. I'm sorry, not yet. It will be on our website, but we also have a YouTube channel, and that's where it'll actually be posted. So Boundary Systems actually has a YouTube channel that you can go through and access, where all of our webinars that we've created are actually listed. So you can actually definitely go there and access any of those. So, any additional questions on any of that or anything that you've seen up to this point? All right. So I don't see any other questions coming through. Oh, wait a minute. So question came in. Actually, I got a couple questions now. Do you need to be an admin to use this functionality? Just to set it up. The setting up of those, like I said, they're using type and attributes, or I should say, I'm sorry, the type and attribute administration. You have to go in and set up the attributes. You need to go through and do that. To go through and set up the actual the tree as far as how things filter down, that is also an administrative functionality. But to actually use that, but you can be an administrator just within the PartsLink area. So you don't have to be administrator on the entire thing. You know, underneath here, actually, sorry, see, he's not even an administrator inside of here. But inside of there, you know, you can go through and actually have an administrators group. And if this is something that you're associated with that you're going to go in and build up, you can go through and be added to that group. And now you have the ability to go through and use that functionality. The next is, can permissions be set so that only certain individuals can set classifications or standardize for standardization purposes? Of course. That kind of goes back to the administrator. So if you're part of the administrator, then you can set whatever you want to. As an individual user, then you can just use that functionality. You're not actually going in and setting anything up. You're actually going in and using what's already set up inside of there. So yes, you can definitely go through and use that functionality. So yes. I apologize for lawnmower noise in the background. If you hear that, there's a lawnmower going on. All right. So if there aren't any additional questions, just as a summary, once again, here's our website. Any additional items that you have or any additional webinars that we'll have will be listed here under webinars. As you can see, there's some. This is the one that we're in right now, which is the part classifications. You can see we have simulating fluid flow with the Flow EFD, which is once again one of our partner companies. Flexible modeling, you know, X information, also Pro NC. So we have a few things coming up. We also have hands-on workshops coming up. You can see there's a Flow EFD. We also have Creo workshops coming up. So there's a couple of them. Those are actually passed, but we do have some for Creo that are coming up. We have one in Louisville on the 10th, and we also have one in Cleveland on October the 5th. And there's also one currently set up in September in Indianapolis. So that's also one there as well. So any additional information you want, definitely go to our website. You can find us, once again, boundarysystems.com. If you want to go in and get in touch with any of us, you can reach myself once again, Michael Wimberly at 513-415-0747. My email address being mwimberly@boundarysys.com. You can also reach Carrie Dillon at 440-409-5898, or once again, cdillon@boundarysys.com. There's our website. You can also go in and open up a technical support call with us. So if you have any questions, any technical questions that you want answered, you can also go through and open up a support call with us. And that support web address is support.boundarysys.com. support.boundarysys.com, or you can also go through and send an email to support@boundarysys.com. So either one of those will get to our support team, and then we'll go through and actually answer your question. It'll get to the proper resource to answer the question, and we'll get back with you pretty quickly with an answer. So at this point, once again, this is the end of the webinar. I truly thank you for your time, and I hope that this was informative to you. Once again, if you do have any questions, feel free to contact any of us. If you want to look at any of our other webinars that we've had, once again, visit us on our YouTube channel. Once again, so inside of YouTube, just go in and search for Boundary Systems, and you'll go directly to our YouTube channel, where you can go in and access all the webinars that we've done in the past. This one will be up probably within the next couple of days. So once again, thank you for your time, and enjoy the remainder of your afternoon. Thank you.